Welcome back to the channel. Today, me and John are going to be planting this 150 Peninsula. We cleaned up the substrate a little bit. We got our trusty prism lids that we're going to use as trays for planting.
So essentially, we have 3 areas of planting. This giant area right here has soil, this middle area, and this back area. I think the bulk of the taller plants will come from the back. Might have like little medium-sized shorter plants in this area and continue the taller, longer plants on this side. So from the quote-unquote side view, you'll get just 2 islands, but from the front view, you'll get one large peninsula type of island look.
We got some really cool plants pulled, some plants that I don't know if we have scaped with on video before, so it should be pretty interesting. So John is wetting the substrate. It's gonna give us a better base to put our stem plants in, put our carpeting plants in. You're also gonna see some of the darker colorations of the wood and rock. I think when we were doing our hardscape, it looked really light, but as you can see, it's gonna darken down once the water is added to this tank.
One tip while you're spraying down your soil, if you choose to, is to use the sprayer to actually clean off the hardscape if there's like sand stuck in between or whatnot. There was some soil over here that I couldn't really get to with any tool, so I'm just spraying it with water to push it down back into the substrate itself. The reason why we're spraying this down a little bit heavier than usual is because we have some lily plants, and the bulb itself that it comes attached to will take up bigger space in the substrate.
So really just taking our time, really saturating this substrate with a lot of water. It's gonna make the planting process a lot easier on a tank like this.
So now that we got the tank moistened down to an acceptable level where we're pretty confident that the plants will just plant right in, I'm gonna show Parker where certain plants will go or where certain heights of plants will go. Unfortunately, the tank won't be at its complete planted stage today, but eventually it will, and you guys will see it.
Sweet, John. Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Super stoked.
Let's get into this. So here we have the taller lilies, which we're gonna be trying to finesse our way into planting. And we have to just be very careful with them because they're really fragile right now. Okay. So the red lilies, very common for lily pads to melt off after you plant it in a new tank, but keep the bulbs healthy, and you'll be fine. You'll see sprouts coming out really quick. And then we have another nymphoides species,
banana plant,
which is green and a little fat and shorter.
I see what you mean.
See what I mean? And then you combine it with this Leucocephala.
Okay.
So you have that little lily in the midground where it's green, and lighter, and then you have the reds.
So I am starting with these really tall tiger lilies, and I am just planting them in the center above the contour base.
I'm just being very careful, planting it as if it was a Vallisneria or a hairgrass, where I'm kind of draping it into the soil. I just am burying it so there's enough soil to hold it down when we flood it. So personally, I don't have that much experience with lilies or bulbs, which is why I like doing these scapes, because it gives me an opportunity to challenge myself. So I'm gonna plant it kind of how it has always worked for me. Drop a comment below to let us know if you have a better way to plant lilies.
I think because the lilies are kind of top heavy, they look a little sad right now.
Yep.
But just keeping the end goal in mind, looking at what we think they will look like once there is water added and the lilies are kind of trying to float at the surface. So I am planting some of this Cyperus Helferi in the back section here. This is going to give us some vertical height as well as some nice green coloration back here. This is coming in all sorts of sizes. It's all going to balance out once there is light and flow.
I think the goal right now is to make sure we plant just enough so that it looks presentable from the start, but at the same time we get a better gauge of how the plants will grow. So I've swapped over to the middle where there's a soil area right here, right in the center, and that's where I'm going to plant the banana plant. Very common plant in the hobby, not so...
Very common beginner plant.
Yeah, not
like,
really
right?
used a lot, which I'm surprised about because it's a really hardy lily.
Some of the delicate plants are very sensitive, so looking for thicker leaves, looking for thicker rhizomes, thicker root systems. Those are all good indicators on how hardy a plant's going to be inside of your tank. So I'm now coming in with this vivipara, this umbrella hairgrass.
This hairgrass is different from any other hairgrass where it will grow offshoots from the top of each blade, basically. To add a little bit of height to my banana plant down here, which you can barely see or not really see, this Hydrocotyle leucocephala is not any type of leucocephala. This is a variegated form. It will probably have a harder time to transition, but once it does, you're gonna get another clover-like, lily-like planted area that has a good mix of bright green, lime green, and whites.
If you're into houseplants, you may already know this, but this Hydrocotyle with the variegation, as well as any other aquarium plant with variegation, is going to be more slow growing because it doesn't have the same amount of chlorophyll inside of it. So just things to keep in mind, a lot of the same principles do apply to houseplants, even down to like root rot. That's a lot of the reason why we did the substrate layer like we did. The sand has a lot less airflow and water movement through it, so the roots are going to be less oxygenated.
I think that's just one of those topics that no one really discusses or even thinks about too much, but it actually is very important to get flow underneath the roots so you prevent the roots from suffocating itself once it grows in deeper.
Just some tips, things you can consider when you're doing your next aquascape, especially if you've had difficulty using some smaller or more difficult plants in the past. Try bumping up the flow and seeing if it helps.
You have your reds and purples and pinks on this side growing up and on top of the water surface. And then moving on to the middle, you have your bright greens, your lighter greens, lime greens, but they're still lily pad-like. And then you continue back onto the purple, pinkish reds over here. So here I have some awesome bunches of plants. They include, let's see, Rotala macrandra, Rotala bossi, Limnophila Vietnam, no, actually Limnophila aromatica mini, Rotala, ooh, these are nice, Rotala Ceylon, pinkish plant, Rotala green, Ludwigia arcuata, and Mayaca fluvialis. And all of these plants combined together will create something super colorful in the middle.
Planting some of this Helferi, kind of looking at little detail spaces I can drop it in to complement the woodwork, and then I'm going to come in with my umbrella hairgrass. Just add a couple bunches to add some grassy height to this section here.
I'm planting the tallest stem plant first so that you have tall growing into smaller stem plants, then growing into even smaller stem plants. So you form a mound. If you're actually looking at the tank from this side, you'll see a mound from smallest to tallest right in the middle. I'm just planting stems in between bulbs and in between lilies. I think this wilder look is kind of getting really popular right now, where it's not as neat.
I feel like for me, this natural style is a lot more realistic as someone with, I think, a more standard kind of maintenance schedule.
Okay, so far my focus has really been in this back area where it will dictate how the rest of the tank should look because you want some sort of consistency. So right here now I'm planting bunches of Mayaca, gonna save some for Parker over on that side. So we'll have a continuous look throughout. Okay, I would say we're about midpoint, adding some final stem touches. And then we'll move on to the midground and the foreground planting, which is not a lot. It just helps to transition between sand and plants. In the midway, you should think of spraying down your plants so that they don't dry out, just so that your hard work won't go to waste, especially with very fragile plants like what we're doing right now.
So I'm coming in with some Hydrocotyle tripartita mini.
We're just wrapping up the stem planting based on what's already been planted, and I'm just going in with some Rotala green to add some finishing touches, and we should be pretty much done with the stem plants. We're gonna shift over to the foreground transition where you don't want to just have sand and then really tall stem plant. I'm gonna just add in a little bit of pink to counter and contrast the green that we have with the banana plant and the Hydrocotyle leucocephala variegated. And I'm just going in with a touch of it. So now I'm gonna add in some additional foreground details. I have Monte Carlo, Helanthium Tenellum, broadleaf, which will sprinkle behind the tripartita that Parker is planting so that it doesn't overtake the foreground in terms of height. And then we'll sprinkle in some hair grass to add like this wild grassy foreground look. So it's not just sand and then rock and then plant and then wood. It'll be like a clear transition. Monte Carlo to wrap it up, Parker.
Anubias.
That's easy. You just walk around and place it.
Monte Carlo?
Yeah, it's my favorite plant. I said it on my first ever UNS video. I'm not taking it back.
It is not your favorite plant. That can't be true.
I'm not taking it back.
Whose favorite plant is Monte Carlo, dude?
Mine. Drop a comment below if you like Monte Carlo.
Drop a comment below if you hate Monte Carlo.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey,
wait, don't do that. Tell us what your favorite plant is in the comment section below. So the last plant we are coming in with in the display tank is this Anubias Pinto. This is a variegated Anubias. It is pricey, it is more delicate, but it looks insane. Just looking for spots that I think this Anubias could look good in. So areas where the wood kind of makes its own little formations. You can glue Anubias, you can tie it, make sure you don't plant it, make sure you don't submerge its rhizome in substrate or anything because it will melt. And like, look at this here. Just beautiful, right? It's Anubias Pinto. It's gonna be a really nice sort of finishing touch, pulling in these bright plants, kind of keeping that kind of theme in the scape.
What I like to do is stack multiple rhizomes so they look fuller. Just like how we grab 2 or 3 stems and plant them together as a small bunch. Doing this will fill out bigger areas, just like in here where this rock is. I can really fill this out, and as you can see, it helps take out that gap that was not really natural looking.
Okay, you guys, we are done planting. John is just doing some final finishing touches, coming in with some tripartita, some Monte Carlo, doing a little bit of details here and there to make this tank look full and grown in. The Anubias we chose do a really good job kind of pulling your eyes to these really cool little subsections of the woodwork. Really cool detailing plant. I'm happy John chose to include it in this scape. I'm really happy with how this came out. I think we got some cool transitioning plants in these Monte Carlo, this hairgrass, this Hydrocotyle, and then we went really heavy and lush on these stems and the lilies in this one, so it should fill in super nicely.
So there we have it, the R150 fully set up. There's still some missing pieces, but for the most part, it's up and running. We're running a custom UNS Pro hanging kit for our 2 Titan 1 lights, which will be just about enough light spread. We have, once again, our hardscape, which consists of extra large pieces of ghostwood and elephant skin stone, along with contrasand bora and Monterey. And the way we kind of planted this was we kind of went bunches by bunches so that when it does grow out, the stem plants will have a slightly more wild look. And so it's a little bit different than what you would expect from your typical nature style aquarium, but we're hoping that this tank will make a nice striking impact once we add even more plants. We were missing the bovitis fern and maybe some moss in the future, but those we can slowly add on. For now, the tank will sit as is, and we're just gonna grow these stem plants out and get some color in the tank.
I mean, you can already see it's only been a couple days since we set this up and planted it, but some of the Rotala and some of the other stem plants are kind of already perking up and growing towards the light. And then even our lily pads that we chose to include, they're already aiming up towards the light. I believe in the first video when we were planting them, they were kind of fallen over, but as you can see, they kind of organize themselves and they're starting to climb towards the light really nicely. Even our Monte Carlo down here in the carpet is looking pretty good already. It's definitely perked up, not as angry as it was when we were planting this tank. We did some really cool things with the equipment. Inside of the sump, we chose to put a 5-pound CO2 cylinder. With this CO2 cylinder, we chose to use our inline diffuser connected to our manifold. So we connected it with silicone pro tubing, and we are just pumping the CO2 into this inline diffuser. It's getting pushed up from the return pump through this manifold and then back into the return pump chamber. And what this is doing is kind of creating a closed loop CO2 reactor where the CO2 comes in through this inline diffuser, diffuses inside of the return pump chamber, gets pulled by the return pump up into the display. And then if you look closely, we're actually getting some really nice micro bubble diffusion all the way down here on this side of the tank. So really don't think there's a need for a wave maker. I think our Ciche 7.0 is doing perfect amount of flow in here. We have about 45 bio bricks in the protein skimmer chamber. Some of these were already seeded with beneficial bacteria, so they're colonizing super quickly, just jump starting the cycle on this tank to help clear up the water, help manage some of the nutrients from the fresh substrate as well as the contra base. Currently, we don't have anything in the refugium chamber, but I will be setting up a freshwater refugium, and you'll probably see a short little video on different options and things you can do with the freshwater refugium in your reef tank at home if you are looking to use one of these for a freshwater system. So that should help manage some of the nutrients just a bit more. What's cool about a freshwater refugium is you can include some plants that you don't really want in your display, like a giant water lettuce or something like that. But it will have all the benefits of keeping these plants in your display. It'll be pulling nutrients from the water column all the time, so it should be pretty sweet. There's a couple other things I'm gonna set up. As John said, I'm gonna do some wire managing on this system definitely before we take it to the show. We're also gonna set up a dosing pump in this side chamber here. And we're gonna be dosing UNS min and max fertilizer. So this should just help these plants grow as quickly as we want them to. We are leaving the lights on 24/7 for these couple weeks until the show. This is gonna give us some crazy growth inside of this tank, but again, I don't know if we can recommend this at home just because we're doing crazy water changes on here as well and dosing a ton, but yeah, it's looking pretty sweet already. I'm super excited to see this growing out. I hope you guys are too.
Like I mentioned before, these lily pads might melt back a little bit. It's not a cause for concern, that's just how they transition. But once they melt back, they'll grow back new pads and probably even bigger and brighter pads too. So stay tuned, look for updates. We're gonna probably post consistent updates on this setup. So yeah, leave a comment below. Let us know how we did. How would you plant a reef system? And hit that like, subscribe. See you guys next time.
Definitely. Bye. See you guys.